just kind of, I'm curious where everybody is from. Since this is our English training, you guys could be anywhere. If you either want to open your microphone or share or just throw in the chat, whatever you're comfortable doing, where everybody is. Hello.
Hello, Ale. Nice to see you again.
Where is everybody that is here? São Paulo.
I can open my microphone. I'm from Brazil. I'm here because I missed the Portuguese session, but I actually work with Ali, and I'm excited to be part of the DI team too. So Brazil, Salvador, but I was born in Brasilia.
We are from São Paulo, right? Me, Sam, Evan. Although Evan is Irish. Lee as well. I have an Irish guy here.
Are you guys all in the same school?
Yes, yes.
Which school is it?
Renascença.
Which is it?
Renascença school.
And some of us are from Alphabetics too.
Yeah, true.
Okay, great. Yes, the Alphabetics, I'm familiar with that school because we have done DI for a few years with you guys, and I'm really glad when we can add more people to our to our group. So we
started together 2 years ago, Ali. In 2019, we worked together.
Back in the old days.
Back in the old good days that we would do all the instant challenges together as well. It was great.
Yeah,
I missed it.
When our tournament in 2019 that we just scooted under the door by like 1 week that we got to have our tournament.
Yeah,
we were super lucky.
3 days after the cases started appearing, exactly there and graded.
Yeah,
graded that time.
There's a case there, and then they're like, oh, maybe we should push back the tournament. I'm like, no, don't push back the tournament. Besides the fact that we really can't, but yeah. All right. So just mostly São Paulo people, no people from Rio this time. Hopefully they'll.
No, we do have some people.
No, there's some Rio people. Yay!
Yes, Mary J is here represented by me and Miss Mariana.
All right. Fabulous. Oh, good. Then when you guys go to school on Wednesday, make sure you give Anna a big hug from me.
Okay, for sure.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Oh, Marian, you gotta let me share. And I'm gonna close my chat screen, but for this, because we're not a huge group. So if there is if there's a question or something you want clarified that comes up, please just, throw it out there, open your microphone, because if you put it in the chat, I may or may not see it. Because sometimes I'm looking like all over the place, or I'm like looking in my head, or I'm looking at the wall that has nothing on it. So I might miss it if it comes up in the chat. So if it's something pressing, urgent, something you really want to ask, just go ahead and open the microphone and just ask. It's the same way that we would run in a presential tournament. Oh, let me actually start the thing so that I'm not just doing a whole bunch of stuff that makes a mess. There it is. Okay, let me present this way. Let me move this over here. Let me move this over here and see how well. No, stop that. When you get it like just at that little spot and then it won't. There we go. Okay, I think that will work. You try to move your screen over and then it opens up all the way because it's in the corner. All right, so here we go. No, go back. All right, take a look at this picture. This is kind of what we think about when we're trying to create a DI space. And when you look at this picture, what do you see? Is this a typical classroom? No,
it's
really.
a fun.
Does this look like a classroom we would want to be a part of?
I would. Everybody seems happy.
Does everybody seem happy? Because it looks like a lot of the kids are having fun. Teacher, looks like she's having fun.
Oh, we have one that is a little, oh my God, what is happening?
Yeah, we got this guy here. Right here.
But maybe he's like this because he's not understanding how to be in this type of classroom.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons that this kid might be feeling this way. But what we do see is that if you're imagining this is kind of like what you would want to see in a typical DI experience. And sometimes this is, Leticia can attest to this, sometimes this is some things that you see in my own classroom because there's a lot of freedom in this moment of discovery. But the first question that comes to mind is, how are all these kids on the ceiling? Why are they on the ceiling? Something that is a little bit pressing is like, is this something that might be dangerous? Is this something that is maybe not safe? But it's still fun. When you think about this, this is what we're trying to create when we're doing our DI experience. Because you don't see the teacher trying to establish order. You don't see the teacher trying to right the situation. The teacher even looks like they're having a lot of fun looking at what is happening. And you have some kids that are watching. You have some kids that are just like really excited, probably screaming. You have one kid who's being a real risk taker. For those of us that are PYP schools, IB schools, somebody who's really trying to do something that is brand new that they probably haven't done before. You have a kid that you see is pointing out, maybe telling the person, trying to give them advice, contributing ideas. We have a kid who does not look happy at all. Looks a little bit frightened almost. What kinds of things do you see around the room? What kinds of elements do you see that are important?
I don't like the materials, the instruments. It seems like a non-traditional classroom. And the way the kid is getting the material, it makes me feel that he needs to do the job too. Like the teacher is just observing and guiding them, but they're not giving the answers for him. But they need to explore. And I like that it's open. We have a little, maybe I wish this cat would be real because it'd be awesome to have a pet in the classroom, a real pet. And it's really colorful too. This is nice.
And we have tools.
Yeah,
Have a
there's
hammer.
tools.
We have the tools here.
There's also the windows, and the windows are open. The windows are, it's something to surround ourselves. We're surrounding ourselves with reality.
In
This is
COVID
kind of,
protocols.
huh?
In COVID protocols, everything needs to be open to their.
And the COVID protocol, exactly. We got both windows completely open, both doors completely open, air conditioner on. Yeah, there's a lot of pieces here that it's this background piece that really this is what we want to bring into a real DI experience, because DI is going to include all these different types of learners, all these different types of kids in a group having an experience together. DI is going to include some things that are probably mathematical, maybe something about geography or social studies. It's going to include music. It's going to include arts. There's some paintbrushes back there. It's going to include tools and building things. It's going to include the real world that is outside the windows. It might even include animals, but no live animals allowed at the tournament. So it includes studies. It includes looking things up. It includes research. And one of the things that it has to have in this fundamental piece is that it is the kids that are doing it. Because you see, the teacher's not in the middle. The teacher's probably not even like doing a typical teaching moment in this sense. The teacher's just there to provide the structure, to provide a space, to make sure that everybody's being safe, but not there to actually direct them on what they need to learn. The learning's taking place.
Sorry to interrupt. I have an observation. The teacher is like, she's beside, she's not in the center, which I think is something that to note. And especially she has a stop sign in one of her hand. It's like she's letting everyone do what they want, but at the same time she has like a stop sign as if like, be careful, but you can be free, but be careful. So I don't know if that's something important. I don't know. It's just something I've observed.
Yeah, and it's hard to know, because she may be saying, be careful. She may also be, as some of us will go through, she may also be saying like, okay, I'm just going to wait. I'm going to hang on a second and see what happens before I intervene, before I say anything that might derail the train of thought or the learning that might be taking place.
And especially not interfere, right? It's their solution.
Yes. Yeah, no interference. This will come up again and again. And it's hard. It's hard as a teacher, and it's hard as a parent. I don't know if any of you are parents. I think you're probably all teachers from different schools. But it's hard to not want to just break in and say, oh, this is a good way to do something. But something that we really look towards in DI is to not have any teaching happen. We give structure, you can teach a skill, but we don't want to interfere in their process, because a lot of that process, it's messy. It's loud.
I think that's the hardest there, right? Not interfering, not, come on, do this. I think that's the hard, that's the thing that we suffered a little bit more when we are giving this meetings, not training session, but the meetings with the kids. Not saying, why don't you do this like this? That's the hard part, right?
Yeah.
I think that the ones that had this experience with DI before, with the kids, I think that's the part we take longer to absorb and to get ourselves used to, because we are teachers, right? So that part that I want to teach them, but we can't, but I think at the end, it's really rewarding to see what they come up with. Their solutions are amazing. And well, the hard part is not saying, okay, you could do this way, not that way, right? But well.
Yeah, it is. It does make it's not a form of teaching that you've ever done before, for the most part. But it does make a world of difference in the level of independence and the maturity that the kids gain in this process, because we really want to make sure that we are giving them the opportunity to grow instead of telling them grow. There's a lot of value, and I think it becomes more authentic. The structure that DI provides goes against a traditional kind of a structure. And that can be really hard to adapt to sometimes, especially if you came from a traditional structure. But the difference that it makes, having had a little bit of an experience in a non-traditional structure, makes a world of difference of how the child will evolve into an adult. And I don't know any kids that have gone through this program that they don't still tell me today what a difference it made in their lives. Even just spending 1 year doing this kind of a learning experience. And the ones that they do it year after year after year, I mean, those are like completely other creatures. Those are the next Bill Gates. Those are the next, what's the name of that guy that just went into space, that was like flying up in the giant dildo shaped spaceship. Like, these are the people that are going to really make a difference in the future, because they found a way to be unhindered. And it becomes this moment where the kids really realize the power that they have. It makes a big difference in the way that they believe about themselves. And that's what we want. We don't want the kids to feel limited, to see from, it's only good enough if the adult says it's good enough. That's not what we're looking for. We're looking for the kids to direct it.
What about since we have to control ourselves not to interfere or teach, what about the scared guy? Do we let him be scared and develop and grow? And what do we do? How do we deal with this guy?
Well, I think the scared guy, he kind of represents what all of us go through in a moment like this, where something's so new, because people react in different ways. The kids react in different ways to this thing that is so scary that now suddenly I have the freedom to direct my own learning. That can be a scary thing for some kids, and some of them will completely shut down. Our job is to be like an emotional guide, to provide tools and structure. We teach them tools and structure to help them grow from this. But it may be that this is always going to be a kid. This may be a personality thing. This may be something that isn't going to happen immediately. This may be a kid that will always feel scared. But we hope that they will feel less scared because they have gone through an experience in an authentic way. We should provide tools and provide this structure where this scared kid might be more likely to speak up, might be more likely to contribute, but they may always be the one who's a little bit reserved. And that's okay, because life is like that. And teens are like that. And we are like that. Some of us have a little bit of that scaredy kid inside of us, and we keep that. And that's something that we learn to deal with. It's part of a growth structure. It's part of a growth mindset, because we're always looking to be better, but we're never looking to reach this thing at the end that the adult says is the thing that we need to reach. We're looking just to grow. And that's what we want the kids to realize, that they have this power to decide to be better. Did that answer the question, or did that sound more confusing?
Definitely. Thanks.
So we're going to go through this introduction. I just realized that I never introduced myself, even though you can see my name there. So I forget that a lot. But my name is Ali. I'm here in Salvador, Brazil. I'm American, but I've lived here for, gosh, like a little more than 17 years. And I was not a DI kid, but I was an Odyssey of the Mind kid. But I only did it for 1 year. But it made a big difference in my love for learning. It made a big difference in terms of my educational background. I mean, there's a lot of little things. I grew up going to a Montessori school. I did a performing arts program called Spectrum, which I think is still out there, that is very much in this kind of a basis where you're creating your play, you're creating your improvisation, you're creating your scenery. So I had a lot of this growing up. And when you get to being an adult, you realize how many of these moments where you're not sitting in a classroom and like trying to memorize and do the test. Like, I was never a good student for that. I had a terrible time when I left Montessori school and went to a public school. I suffered a lot. And it's because you naturally, as a kid, have this ability to think in a greater sense, to be more creative. And I feel like a traditional education setting starts to like beat that out of you. Having this kind of an exposure. I think in a PYP structure, we don't have so many problems with this because we do leave open a lot of space for the kids to be self-directed in their learning. But sometimes we're like, okay, now you're going to sit down, you're going to learn math, because in our heads and in our structure and in our educational setting, we're like, they have standards. They have to learn this. They're in first grade. They have to know how to write a sentence and use punctuation. They're in third grade. They have to be able to write a paragraph with 3 details. We have these standards, and yes, we should have these standards. But when we just try to teach them and say, this is the standard and now perform, it's a completely different kind of an experience than when you give them a space to explore doing this in their own way and then try to shape the parameters of the expectations around the things that the kids are interested in and the way that they want to direct it. It makes a different kind of a learning experience. And they do it in a way that's so fun and so authentic that they don't realize that they're learning, but they absorb so much from that kind of an experience. A lot more than when you're in this adult point of view in the classroom as a teacher and saying, you need to learn it this way. This is the thing we need to learn. It's not so interesting for the kids. And the thing is, when you go into all of our standards and everything we have to cover, like they are going to learn it eventually. I mean, I left Montessori school. I didn't know how to read. And for whatever reason, either they didn't know, or because in Montessori school, it's all about when the kid is ready, they're going to start doing it. I really believe that. I mean, sometimes you got to say, hey, try a little harder. Let's go, like apply yourself. They need encouragement. But it's not like I left, I entered third grade and I didn't know how to read. And I mean, I'm not a failure at life. I was a great student later on. I just needed the proper structure and some of those little elements in order to be able to find my way. And that's what we're looking to create here. We're looking to give them a structure. So this is more or less what we're going to look at in this part of the training. We're going to look a little bit about our philosophy. We're going to talk a little bit about skills development, instant challenge, and team challenge, because these are all the basic pieces that we have in the program. And we're going to talk a little bit about the DI season and the way that you will need to structure it for yourselves, and maybe some other possibilities. There's a lot of different ways that you can plan your year, and you can do it in a very simple way that will fit well into your agenda that you already have. I know we're all really busy. We're all doing a lot of stuff, but you can do a lot of extra things that will really benefit your kids, and they'll be really fun. It takes extra time, but it's worth it. And this first part of the training is going to be a lot of me talking at you. But again, please, just open the microphone and ask a question anytime something comes up or it is not clear. So I'm going to stop sharing because I didn't share with video or sound. And I'm going to open this video, pause it. Yeah.
Photo in the previous slide, was that a real TI event, like presential event?
Which slide?
After the image of the classroom.
Yeah. That's a image from Global Finals. So Global Finals, DI has a Global Finals, and every year in this Global Finals, it happens in, I'm trying to find the video so I can see you guys. I hate talking to nothing. Every year there's a Global Finals event that happens in the United States, except for the last 2 years, we've not had a presential one. And I'm not sure, they're planning on having a presential one next year, but I don't know how many international teams will be able to get into the country and participate, because who knows, it's a pandemic, so you can never predict the future. But that picture is from the Global Finals event, and Global Finals, we'll go into the data, but like something like 1,500 teams that are the best teams in the program in the whole world all descend on one city, and we have these big event, and they all present their solutions. We walk around, we spend a whole week watching other presentations, talking to other teams, meeting other people. It's a huge competition. It's super fun. The kids learn tons, and they get to meet people from all over the world. And that's like this extra benefit of what you get when you're working in DI, is that you get out of this bubble, because the kids, they limit themselves. They get used to this academic space where they're like, okay, I need to make a poster, and I need to make a presentation, and I need to say this data. And they limit to, I did enough. And what we want them to think is that it's never enough. They could always do a little bit more. They could always make it look a little more interesting. They could always take it a little bit farther, because that's where we really see innovation happen. So a typical DI presentation, they have a challenge that we'll talk in detail about what that challenge can look like. And then they have to make a solution to that challenge, and then they go and they present it. And there's like a series of tournaments. So in Brazil, we just have our affiliate tournament because our program's pretty small. We usually only have like a max of like maybe 40 teams across the country. So we all go to one city and everybody presents in this one city, and we see each other's solutions. But other places like Texas, there might be like 40 teams in one school, and that school might have their own competition. And then the top like 10 teams from that school will go to a regional competition and they'll present. And then the top 20 teams from the regional competition will go to the Texas affiliate competition and they'll present. And then the top, whatever, 100 teams from Texas will go to global finals. So we have like a very small bubble in Brazil in terms of the participation that happens. But when they go to this event, even when they go to Sao Paulo or Rio or wherever the competition happens in Brazil, they get, kind of a bigger view because they start to realize like, oh, look, this team made a piece of scenery that moves. We could have done that. We just didn't think about it, because we were like, oh, we had to have scenery. So we painted it on a background and we hung it up, we did enough. We made scenery. It said make scenery. We did it. But they don't realize that there's always more they could do. So when they go to these competitions, they really see it. And when you go to globals, I mean, you see teams from Texas and China just like blow you out of the water because it's part of their curriculum. They come up and starting in kindergarten, already doing DI competitions, already having this as part of their curriculum. It's a really big thing. And they end up with this completely different circumstance where you see kids in like third grade and they built this massive scenery that has lights and, like a tree that grows because they push a button in and they built a hydraulic system and that they researched on YouTube. I mean, they just do amazing stuff.
I'm still thinking about the Dragon and the Uno game that we had on 2019 global finals, that we had the dragon, the hydraulic dragon that would move. Come on, my kids, when they saw that, they say, whoa, come on, are we competing against people like this? And because it's amazing what they create, but they get inspired when they see that kind of presentation, because they see, whoa, this is possible. We can make something like this. And that is really good for them because it opens their eyes. There is a wider world around us. I think that for Brazilians and for Brazil specifically, it's really good to see that there are other possibilities. There are more that they can do. So I think the best part about DI is actually that how can they use their imagination to do something amazing with a small amount of money and a small amount of resources. And that's the greatest. For me, that's the best part. It amazes me all the time that like how young kids are able to imagine things that we adults, having been taught all our lives in the same way, in the same, let's say, square. We are not, for example, I would never imagine to bring up a dragon in a competition because it was a game of mahjong. It's unbelievable. And that's, for me, that's the best part. Okay, that kind of inspires me to do something different with them next year, this year. But well, just sharing my thoughts here. Okay.
Yeah, no, but that's important. And it's important to come from somebody other than me who's been, I have a different kind of a view because I've been working in the program for so long. None of us that work in this program earn any money doing it. Like I don't get anything from DI. I do it because I really believe in this structure. I really think it's the best educational structure. And once you start to do it, you start to see like how boxed in we really are in terms of, and not that curriculum or standards are a bad thing, because they're not. They help direct us. They help us know where we got to go. But there's better ways of letting the kids learn rather than teaching them. So there's just a little short testimonial about what DI is. I'll turn on the closed captions for people so that they can also read in case that's helpful.
Our program empowers kids to be lifelong learners, adventurers, explorers. It gives them the confidence to take on challenges.
We tie into the child's passions, things they're excited about, and so then it becomes normal for them to have fun and at the same time learn these important skills for the future.
This is completely kid-driven. No adult interference is allowed, and that is incredibly empowering.
They love being able to explore themselves and explore different aspects of their own talents or their interests.
We need people who are resourceful. We need people who understand the whole concept of problem solving. They don't back away from it. They actually move towards it.
Children need to be able to learn how to work in a team. They need to be globally aware. We have to operate across cultures, across time zones, across geography.
Nebraska, China, Turkey.
In Destination Imagination, you gain confidence in your own ideas and your ability to think. And then along with that, you get a chance to work collaboratively with other kids your own age. And that sense of unity and teamwork that arises is extraordinary.
They're going to learn skills that they can apply in every single aspect of their life.
DI is really the one program that just allows me to be creative and allows me to be weird, and then embraces that.
And the children will tell you that Destination Imagination changes their lives.
So that's just their short little promotional thing. Now I got to see if I can figure out how to get back to the presentation. I love how Mr. Bean is showing up on my searches as suggestions to watch that because we watch that with our kids. So when you look at this, like how do you think the kids felt? What's the atmosphere?
For me, it's the first time, and I want to be a DI student. Like, I'm already a teacher, but I wish I could have the opportunity. It seems a lot of fun, really challenging, and it's great. And I am kind of want to hear you more, everybody, because I'm struggling in between putting that in the classroom and DI. But what I understood that DI is a competition, right? We don't insert this inside the normal class. We could, of course, but DI, it's a separate thing that happens at tournament that they need to build something like it's specific, right? Because I'm trying to put things together, but are two different things.
Can I say something from my experience here? Not that I have that much because you just participated 1 year because of the pandemic, of course. I inserted some things from DI, like instant challenges. I inserted them in my classes, especially because we had kids that went to the competition, and I started inserting like team building activities, instant challenges, working as a team, because it's really good, especially because our kids were and are still going through this pandemic, and lots of them lost their social skills. And nowadays, using this instant challenge, like some instant challenge, small instant challenge, using the materials in the classroom is helping them develop what? Develop their sense of a group, their positions in the group, their leadership skills, critical thinking. So you can include it, even in a language class. We include that because they have to deal with it. They have to speak, they have to interact, they have to communicate and solve a problem. So you can do it as well. Of course, DI is DI, and classes, normal classes where you have a curriculum, it's different. But when you have groups that, for example, instead of doing a speaking activity, you do an instant challenge and they have to deal with it, it's really good and you should start using it. This is my personal, let's say, my personal feeling about using what I've learned with DI, because we learn as well inside the classroom, and it works really well. They have a lot of fun, and it helps develop their skills.
Yeah, like sure. I think I can start putting things inside the classroom, but only about the feeling that I'm having now. It's just like excitement, and it seems a lot of fun, and
you'll have moments.
Yes.
You'll have moments, believe me.
I think what I'm most excited is to see different students, like with a different hat. You know, we can have totally different conversations and totally different relationships with this kind of student that Ali just said, that the next, I don't know, Bill Gates are there, you know, so this is exciting.
One of the most important things about this is to see that the protagonists in this whole thing is the students. It's never the teacher, it's never the team manager. They're the ones that need to do the work. And it's funny because you go through this, it changes like your perspective about how you're going to imagine yourself as a teacher. You're not the one giving information. That's not what we look to have in DI. You are the one providing a structure and teaching them tools and helping to give them ways to solve conflicts, but they're the ones that have to do that real work of learning. The initial planning part is heavy. You got to think about all the possibilities. You got to be prepared for anything to happen. But when you actually hand it to them, it's their work that they need to produce and they need to go ahead and try to do. And they're not going to do it immediately. And sometimes that's really hard as a teacher to see them not do, like, I know you could do this and this is how you could do it. And let me teach you this. We think about it like the same way, like if we're going to teach like a math lesson. And I'm using this example because you work with me, but like, we're going to teach them a math lesson. And first we're going to show them, you know, these are the ways you can use. Here's 3 different possibilities of tools you can use to regroup numbers so that you can add them. And then we just let them go and see what happens without correcting them. So they do it and then they go through this process. And some of them, they do it and they know. Some of them are doing it in their head and we're not sure how they're doing it. And we want to understand their strategy. And some of them are just not doing it, but they're all together in this moment. And so the kids that are not doing it are seeing this other kid is doing it. Maybe they can learn from that kid. The kids that are doing it in their head and we're not sure what's going on, the other kids are like, wow, that's something I can do in my head. I think I want to go there. We're looking to create a structure where the kids are being inspired by each other and not trying to work towards this objective that the teacher set, like, this is what you have to learn, so you have to do it. We want them to be working towards it in their own structure and their own like scaffold. And so we try to create a space that it's a scaffold. So it's sort of like a shorter analogy, but there's a lot of different tools that if we were doing a presential training, I could show you, and I can show you, Leticia, in the classroom because they're in those huge gigantic boxes that are on top of our closets. But there's a lot of ways to use it in the classroom as something that you use every day. Besides Instant Challenge, which you've seen that we do like a lot of stuff with building, and then I'll show them how to build something at the end of that. So doing stuff like that is one way. You can also do it in a language aspect. So you can there's these Instant Challenge flip books, which is on my list of things for us to create. That's something that you could use in your language groups where they just open, they're going to flip to a random thing and say, okay, this is our structure for our play. It has all the lead-in words, it has all the structure, and then you have 5 minutes to plan how you're going to do it, and then you have them present it. And it's a really great structure. It's easy. You don't have to plan anything ahead of time, but you have to create your flip book. But then you can pull out that flip book for months and use that as something that the kids can use as a language thing, but they're also learning this teamwork structure. They're also learning how to interact with each other. They're also learning how to think fast and think critically, and they're learning to apply information that they've been given in the class. So there's a lot of ways that we can use it. We just aren't using it effectively yet because we're still trying to get to know the kids. This is our learning philosophy when we think of what we want to see in DI. It's like the last place winner should gain the same amount of knowledge and skills as the first place winner in any Destination Imagination program. This is what we want, because it's not about winning. It's not about like having the kids be the best in first place. And if you're not in first place, then you failed, because that's not what we're looking for. We're looking to respect the process. We're looking to see, where did the kids start and how far did they go? Maybe they didn't reach that space, and that's okay, because they grew as an individual. They learned something. They changed their perspective. We want them to acquire new knowledge by failing and looking at it and saying, okay, I didn't do this correctly. How can I change it and be better? They need to get knowledge about themselves, and they need to learn from each other, and they need to know that it's important for them to contribute to the group, not just be somebody in the background who's like, okay, I'm going to wait for somebody to help me. But they realize that even if they're not doing, this objective, they can contribute something valuable. They have a value that contributes to others, because all kids have this, but they forget about it because they have this objective they're trying to meet. And if they can't meet that objective, they feel like failures and that they're not worth something. What we're trying to build in them is that they have value, even if they're not doing this part, but they have this other thing that's inside of them that they can contribute. And it's important for others and it helps others grow. And that's what we want the kids to see. We want them to see how they can grow as individuals and how they can be contributing to their team.
I had a sharing a little bit of my experience. I'm sorry, I'm talking too much. I don't
but
have
it's
much
great.
time as well.
Better.
But it's interesting because when we were working with our kids, the year we participated, we had several different groups. We had groups that were younger, groups that were more tech-able, groups were more like that had better, let's say, more developed language skills. And I was working with a team that was older. And one of the things that they had difficulties at the beginning was exactly how to solve an instant challenge. And there were three, but the three were totally different. You had the leader, you had the creative, and you had one that was not talking as much. So I gave them some instant challenges. I gave them the time. The first time they did it, they failed. After I asked the three, okay, what could have you done differently? Okay, you that don't speak that much, what do you think? How would you do it differently? I would do it like this, like that. Okay, you, what do you think about her solution? Oh, it's really good, but why didn't you say something? And they start developing and seeing their value, and that their ideas, their opinions have a bigger value than they imagine. But I didn't say nothing because she's better than me doing tech things. And the development that they have during our sessions, it's unbelievable. At the end, they didn't need even to speak with each other to solve something. They would just give a look to the other and they would do it instantly. And this is, for me, I think one of the greatest things about TI. Not only do they see their value, but they started realizing that what they think, their ideas are good to solve issues, to solve problems, that they have a bigger value that they imagined at the beginning. And you'll see this through the training sessions, especially the ones that will work with kids, bigger groups. You'll probably see this. You see the leadership taking place. You see the one that doesn't like that leadership, that will fight with them, they will have conflicts, and they will develop their skills as a group and as a team in this. I think it's one of the most wonderful ways to have it. Like, you see them realizing that they have a bigger value, that they know better, that they know how to do it, that they can solve the problem. And this is, for me, amazing. That's why I love GI. If I could, we would have gone to the finals, but unfortunately, we had that pandemic issue, right?
Yeah, the pandemic didn't help us. I felt like we were on like this really good track. We were starting to bring in new schools.
Yeah.
And then last year, the only school that participated was mine. Entirely possible because everybody was feeling it. And I can't take credit for the fact that my school kept going, because it really was not me. It was, one team in particular, and the motivation of these other kids that had had experiences that we would do at school that kept it going.
And
It's
we were lost. We didn't know what to do, right? Because everybody had to learn something in this pandemic. Had to relearn everything out, actually, right? Well,
yeah.
Next year.
And it really was a salvation for some of these kids, for us, like, and being able to see our kids, because it was, for a while, for us at least, like, we were not supposed to see our kids because we were all supposed to be, staying in our bubbles. But for DI, we were seeing our kids. We would see our kids sometimes a couple times a month. We would have virtual meetings, but we would also go and meet presentially in an open air space and work with them. And it made a big difference just to have us feel a little bit normal, having those moments of seeing the kids. It made a big difference for us.
True.
So here's a whole bunch of background information about DI. Don't worry about memorizing it all or anything, because this is all stuff that comes straight out of the website. But our affiliate in Brazil, I think we've been around. No, we've been longer than 15 years. Longer than 15 years in Brazil, because I've been in the program for 16 years. So but it's a lot of kids participating. Of course, last year in the pandemic, we didn't have so many participants as we usually do, but it's a lot of kids, like over 150,000 kids. And like when you see those videos, you see all that stadium full of people with all these glowing things. That's just the kids. That's just the teams. That's not even people coming to watch the teams. That's just the kids, the best ones from the whole world, all in one spot. And there's a ton of alumni and some like famous alumni, like on Glee. He did DI all through his school career. He still talks about how it changed who he is. It made him who he is today. He even came and spoke at Global Finals one year, which was really cool. More than 38,000 volunteers, which now you guys are part of those 38,000 volunteers. If you're going to lead a team, or if you're going to work as an appraiser or do something else within the program, this puts you into this category of volunteers. And it is almost entirely volunteer based. I'd say there's, maybe 20 people that are paid by DI to run the structure of the programming, make sure materials get where they got to go, and make sure, people are following rules and editing things and this kind of thing. But the rest of it is just those of us that we really believe in the program, and we just sort of keep moving on. And there's tons of people. It's a huge community. When I had a team forum last year in my school, they really wanted to participate. And we were all in this virtual setting. We didn't have presential meetings. We weren't allowed to have presential meetings. And I just sort of like reached out to the DI community and said, hey, I'm looking for a team manager for a brand new team. It doesn't really matter where you are because we're all virtual anyway. But I really need somebody to work with this team. They're really motivated. They're a great team, but they're new to the program. They need a good structure. They need somebody who can meet with them. And they ended up with a team manager in California who ran the team entirely virtually from California. And it was a little bit complicated because the kids spoke English, but the parents didn't speak English. Communication was a little bit challenging, but they did a great job. They had a really amazing experience, really authentic DI experience, despite the pandemic, despite this weird situation that we were in. And being part of this group, being part of this, like we all want to support each other because we really believe in the program and we really believe in what it does for the kids. So you join this group now, and please reach out to the group if you need help, because we do want people to help. There's more than 30 different countries that run this program. It's not just the US. The US goes by state. Canada goes by their, I think they're territories. I don't know if they're states. But then there's like Australia, China, Korea, Turkey, Taiwan. Portugal has a program, but I don't know if they've ever brought teams. Brazil, many of the countries in South America, and not all of them have affiliates. Sometimes an affiliate will have like just a few teams. So then they'll go and they'll participate. Like we've had teams from Chile come to the Brazil affiliate and participate a couple of years. We even had a couple of teams come from Colombia. I'm not sure why, because they have a big affiliate participation, but it's everywhere. There's kids all over the place, and it's at different levels too. So like some countries have a lot of participation. Some countries it's very low. We work primarily in this idea of innovation. Who is buzzing my door? Sorry, there's somebody at my door. Hang on a second, I'll be right back. Tá bom, valeu. Okay, so something just got delivered to my door. Okay, so we work primarily in this idea of innovation and project-based learning. Everything that the kids are doing needs to be done in collaboration. We teach them tools for conflict resolution. We want to teach them tools for creative and critical thinking. But this space, we teach them tools. What they do with it is up to them. The teams that we work with, because they need to work in teams, are made up from 2 to 7 members. Not 1, because 1 person is not a team. And the limit is 7 because that's the limit. They work in different competition levels. So there's the Rising Stars, which is the unscored space. That's the kids that are up to 8 years old. They have one challenge. It's a very clean structure. If you're new to the program, I encourage you to take a look at a Rising Stars Challenge packet just so you can see what a simplified structure looks like. It'll help you get your head around what a challenge is made up of. Then there's elementary level. Elementary level is the 8 to 11 block. They can be just third graders. They can be third graders and fifth graders, and they all compete together. Elementary level, so third graders competing with fifth graders. Then there's middle level, which is the middle school block, which is the 12 to 14-year-olds, I believe. And then there's secondary level, which is the 15 to 18 block. And then there's university level, and then they have like one challenge that they can do. You need to have an adult team manager with each team. That person needs to be over 18 years old. I have used seniors in high school that were 18 years old to lead younger teams when they have had DI experience. It worked super well, actually. But I'm not sure if you can do it for teams that are going to be competitive. I'm not sure if that's actually allowed. But I have done it. It does work well when they have a structure, when they've had DI experience. They are there to guide and mentor, but they're not there to teach and direct. You just provide structure. You want to have this idea of student ownership. The kids need to decide if they have done enough. And really, the thing that you want to do is encourage them. They've never done enough. You can always do a little more. You can always go a little farther. There's online training, which if you have a team and if you're new to this structure and you want to remember what are the main points, please do sign up and do that on your own time. They're just little PowerPoint slide things, but there's a lot of different things that'll train you in that system. There's trainings offered all the time. You can go in and do like a learning track. You can go in and just choose trainings you want to do. There's a program guide that's provided for the program. So when you sign in with your team number, then you get a whole bunch of material already made for you that will tell you how to do your lesson plans. I mean, you really don't have to lesson plan. When I started working this program, we just got the challenge, we got the rules, we got the instant challenge packet, and then, there you go. And then we had to kind of create our structure. Nowadays, there's this whole project management system that they give you with the program that you just receive this and has for every type of lesson planning structure that you prefer. So some people prefer to plan the general information for the week and then kind of feel out the kids and execute it as you go. Some people want to have like, this day I'm going to do this day I'm going to do this. Some people want to plan for one meeting and then, or like, we're going to do this certain structure. And then when we complete that structure, we're going to go to the next structure. It has all those different spaces in there to allow for each of those planning styles to work well. And it gives you all the information that I'm going to give you in a very short form in these trainings, but there's a lot of stuff to read. It's really useful. And it takes out that work part. Like we used to be like, okay, we got to have a whole bunch of material and we grab an instant challenge. Okay, today we need to get this and this and this and this and this and this and this. And then we're running all over the school trying to find these materials. Now they give you a list. You need to have all these materials to run all the instant challenges. You collect all those materials in a box, then you pull out an instant challenge and you just got to pull the things out of the box. It became very easy now with this structure. So I would encourage you to look at these materials when you get them, see if they're going to be useful for you. If you feel confident in just creating instant challenges off the top of your head, 100% you can do that, but they do provide a lot of structure for that. Everything now for registration is done online, which is great. All the forms, the tournament data forms, the reflection pieces, registration for the tournament, I believe everything is done through the resource area. We started doing that because of the pandemic, and it actually turns out to be pretty useful for getting the kids squared away and making sure that they're not breaking any rules before they go to the competition, giving them chances to fix something that they might have missed in terms of what is being required in the challenge. There's a whole huge packet of rules and regulations. They even went through, if you're not new to the program, they even went through and they have a structure of underlining things that are new. So when you're going through, because it's important, once you read this rule document, because it's like 150 pages or something, once you read it 1 year, it doesn't change so much from year to year. So once you understand the rule structure, and you should, as the team manager, understand the rule structure, because the kids will not remember unless they've been in the program for several years and they've run into, making an error a few times, that things that they're not allowed to do. Most of the time they won't remember all the rules, but you need to remember the rules, because we don't want them to go in there and try to do something that it directly says they cannot do. And if they try to do something that says they cannot do, it is not interference to say, hey guys, the rules say this cannot be done. Like, don't let them make a stupid mistake of doing something that it directly says they can't do. That is not interference. So once you've read it through 1 year, you're pretty much set, but you should look, because they underline the changes. They underline the things that you need to know in order to participate. And the wonderful support community, which I've already talked about several times. It's amazing. There's a lot of groups on Facebook. I don't know where else they have groups, because I'm not on a lot of other social media. I mostly spend my time there because I'm 40 and, we founded Facebook, therefore we live there. But there's probably Instagram. I don't know if there's Instagram groups, but there's places you can follow on Instagram. If you search online and you're looking for information, Texas has a ton of great stuff. There's lots of people in Texas that want to help, that work with the program. So do use that support community. So now we're going back to having you guys think a little bit. With this picture, what does this picture say to you? If you had to think about, like, if you're a learner, or think about your kids on your team, what does this picture say?
Their own skills.
Oh, sorry.
Their strengths, their characteristics, right?
Yeah, I would say.
I think differently. I think that he has a narrow perspective, because he can see only what is in exactly in his nose.
Good one. I haven't thought.
I'm a little harshly sorry.
But at the
thought
same
about that
time,
same thing. Yes.
yeah, at the same time, I can see some development, because he has drawn fruits. There's a lot of different backgrounds to the drawing. So there's sun and there's different landscapes other than his own nose. So there's kind of development there.
I think he is painting different perspectives from the same point of view.
Exactly.
Maybe he's putting
That's what I'm thinking too.
his personality or his ideas, his views of the world, but with the world, like mixing them up.
And I don't know, his face looked a little dumb, like maybe, I don't know, if a person always see from his own perspective, his own nose, I don't know, he's not gonna grow as a different human beings. Like, he's gonna have the same mind, no matter what experience he's having.
Now that you talked about the eyes, I think that he has something different about about him that probably, I don't know, Strabic, and being that he only saw his his horn, right, because it's a rhino. Not only he sees what's in front of him, but he's also widening up his horizons and seeing what's behind his nose, not just this in front of him, but what's around, So probably he has something different about him, but being different, he can also perform and do things that are different. Sorry.
It really is. It's all about the perspective. Because how often do we as adults, we ask the kids to look at a problem and it's not real to them. Here's a problem, come up with a solution, but it's not real because we're not in their perspective. Like when you're you're looking at something, you're looking at it from your perspective. Like, this is how the perspective is for this rhinoceros. Everything has this giant horn in the middle. And this is what we do sometimes to the kids. We're asking them, like, okay, there's not really a horn in the scene. Like, guys, like, but that's not their perspective. Like, kids, they get disengaged with content when it's not real to them. If we're giving them something and they're not picking it up, it's not coming from their perspective, it's coming from ours. So we want them to think about things from their perspective. That's what makes them become lifelong learners. That's what makes them think about where they want to go and what they're interested in. Oh my goodness. Can you wait a little bit? Okay, I'm going to take a break a little bit and I'll get you a mango. Okay, hang on.
That's
She's
cute.
all grown
Somebody
up.
else is awake here. I'm the only person awake. And so
She's
she got
all
up.
grown up. The last time we saw her, she was really little.
Yeah, she's 3 now.
Three
She's-
already. Way, hello
3.
again. How are you? You've grown.
Last time she was there
was a
in
baby.
diapers, just standing on the stage with a pacifier. Yeah. Yeah. We want the kids to think about things in their perspective, and we want to respect their perspective. And this is something that we have to keep in mind as teachers, as team managers, as adults, that we need to make sure that we're not trying to force our perspective on those kids. Because if they're disengaged, it's because it's coming from our view. They need to care about it. Otherwise, it's not going to matter to them. And some of them are really good at saying, okay, I'm going to take this and I'm going to care about it. But some of them aren't, because they're different kinds of thinkers. They're different kinds of learners, and they're going to see things with a horn. And we have to respect that and figure out how to work with that. So this is a lovely quote from Ken Robinson. And as a teacher, if you've never seen this, there's a movie, there's this, it's on YouTube somewhere, that I think it was a TED Talk from Ken Robinson, and they did this drawing thing to animate it, that it's like squeaky markers on a marker board, like the whole thing is like drawing the picture to visualize what he's saying. And it's really interesting. It's called Changing the Paradigm. And it really is the idea of like what we want to instill with DI is exactly what is said in this thing. If you're a teacher, you've probably seen this thing. They even have it with Portuguese subtitles for those of you that would like to share it, maybe even with parents of kids on your team, to give them like a better idea about what it is that you're trying to do. But here is creativity is the process of having original ideas that have value. It is a process. It is not random. How many of you guys consider yourselves to be creative people? Yes, no, maybe.
Yeah, sometimes.
Sometimes, time to time. Most of the times I think we lost our creativity as we grow. I think we lost a little bit of that. And kids have an imagination and creativity that we lost. So I would use, when I was younger, yes, I was creative. Nowadays, I would love to stay creative, but no, I lost it.
That's one of the things that he says in this thing, that like kids, they have a better creative structure, and they have a tendency to lose this as they get older, because they get boxed in. They get boxed in by the curriculum. They get boxed in by the limits that are imposed on them in this, that we have to be adult and mature. And there's no room for us to just randomly create a cube out of trash. Like there's a lot of processes that go into this creativity. And it is a process. Like, we want to teach the creative process in DI. That's like our essential purpose in working with this. So provide feedback to highlight where the team is in their process, how they can continue to move through that process, but not what is correct, not what is the expectation, not what they should be doing, but just where they are. We want to think about bringing this structure so that they can be using their creative skills. the process doesn't go in one line. It indicates there's like different pieces, and sometimes they're in one and they go back to another. They're going to get to an end, but maybe they're going to go back to the beginning. We really want to take this creative process piece and we want to put it into their project management skills. And that's what we do in DI. When we take this idea of the creative process, and if you search for in Google Destination Imagination, the creative process, you'll get this little PDF white pages that explains all these pieces of the creative process. It's a great document to read if you're not familiar with those different stages. But then we have to take that piece and put it into project management. How do you guys feel about this idea of project management? Does it feel like too adult of a term?
A little bit.
That's
Project management, like to manage something. We have that small drawing that was on the roadmap from other years, that you have the chart, right? The creative process, the steps and everything. But if you take that and you show it to your kids and let them analyze it, okay, what are the steps of the creative process? And let them go through it without managing anything. I think it works really good, okay? Because when they see it, they start understanding, okay, this is how I create. Yeah, I do this. Yes, I do that. And it helps us a lot. Even for us, it helped a lot. We learned from DI a lot as well. Not only the kids. I think that the experience of DI bring us a lot of things that we lost along the way. And that chart is amazing. I used to have it in my wall, like glued in my wall. Creative process. Okay, that's good. I'm going to do this again.
Yeah, there's a lot of pieces, and it's important that we make them aware of where they are in this process so that they don't get lost in one part or another. When you're trying to get from A to B, I know you guys, those of you that have done this training before, because I love this slide. I made this slide many years ago and I still use it, and I use it to teach the kids because we're thinking about getting from A to B. It's simple. Okay, here's A, here's B, go. But for some kids, they're going to do it like that. They're going to go around and around and around, and we're going to start to get frustrated, like, oh my God, it's right there in front of you. But they're going to get there. Sometimes they take a completely different path every time they go. Sometimes they're all working in different paths, and then they encounter each other at the end. Sometimes it looks like this, and we can't figure out what the heck is going on. And then the great thing about DI is sometimes they're going on that path, but somewhere in between that path, they found another point that we never thought of. They come to that innovative idea, and that is what we really want them to go for. That's what we want them to think about. There isn't a straight path. There isn't the right way to do any one thing, because if we're just going to go the same way and follow those same steps, we're never going to find this new thing. We're never going to find that point C if we don't take the time to be all over the place. And it's important that we respect that piece, that it is valuable. There is an important piece that we might be missing, especially if we're stuck in our perspective and we're trying to impose it on the kids. So here's this lovely chart that Felipe was talking about. It's not linear, okay? The way that people explain it sometimes is that, we have these blue arrows, okay? And it looks like we're gonna follow this. And this is generally, once you get practiced in it, you can do that. But you do see there's these little arrows, like you start to recognize what it is, and then you're gonna move to imagining all the possibilities of what you could do. And then, but in the middle of that, oops, we couldn't imagine so many things. Maybe we didn't realize what we needed to do. And you go back to recognize again. Then you go to imagine. Then you start to initiate and collaborate. And like, oh, wait, it's not working. Let's go back to recognize again. So it's important to call attention to what these steps are. You can do it explicitly, but for younger kids, sometimes it doesn't really stick yet. So what I like to do when I'm creating, especially in terms of how to deal with instant challenges, and when they initially start instant challenges, they all fail. They just don't know how to deal with it. when you break it down by the steps of the creative process and you break down these little pieces, I like to try and do that with all the different things that they need to do. So first, we're going to realize what it is that we have to do. So we're just going to talk about what does that mean? We're not going to build anything. We're not going to touch anything. We're not going to manipulate materials. We're just going to talk about what it is that we have to do because maybe we didn't understand it. The next step is to try and brainstorm all the things you can think about that you might want to do based on what we know. Then you can start to build. But sometimes you realize, oh, I could have done more. You're going to go back to the imagine piece. So I take the time to do these steps with Instant Challenge. I teach an Instant Challenge workshop to our kids every year. We even did it virtually, which was kind of cool. But trying to do this really helps them to see what these steps are without having to directly tell them, because when they're younger, they're not going to absorb it so much. But it's important that they realize that there are steps they need to go through. And when they start to see those steps, once they start to realize, okay, right now we're just trying to understand the problem, then we can give it a name. We're in recognize. And then now we're going to start to imagine. We're going to brainstorm. We're going to talk about it. We're going to write all the ideas possible. We're going to draw what we think is going to happen. When they start to see the steps that they're going through, it helps to give them that name. And then they can start to see where they are, and then they don't get so stuck. This is what we create in our program. So we do a lot of stuff with skills building, with these important different things where we're looking at the 21st century skills. We're talking about information media. We're talking about learning and innovation. We're talking about curriculum and instruction, and we have standards, and they tie all this stuff together. If you're curious, there's documents that show you what parts of the Common Core curriculum you're touching on when you do these different things. I don't use these documents so much anymore, but they do exist. And then we work with these two types of challenges. The Instant Challenge, which is something where you're going to do in like 5 minutes or less, probably with limited material, maybe with limited abilities, like build a tower of straws and you're not allowed to talk to each other verbally. You have 5 minutes, go. That's literally what will happen. And then I'll see at this slide, I didn't change this is last year's challenges. And then we have the Team Challenge, which is something that is designed for them to work on for a longer period of time. You're still working the creative process in all of these pieces, but in the Instant Challenge, you're going to do it very fast. In the Team Challenge, you're going to do it in a very slow way. In the Instant Challenge, you'll reflect on it in a verbal way. In the Team Challenge, they're going to reflect verbally and writing. There are 6 different main challenges, and every year they change what needs to be done, the objective, but the learning area and the interest area stays the same. So there's always a technical challenge where they may have to build a car or a plane or some kind of robot or something that has to do with tech. There's always a service learning challenge where they have to do a project in their community. There's always a fine arts challenge where they have to do something with music or art or somewhere in the fine arts. There's always a scientific one that's based in something with scientific background. There's always an engineering one where they usually have to build a structure that supports weight, but it has changed over the years. Sometimes they have to build like a structure out of different materials like cards or a bridge. And there's always an improvisational one where they do a lot of research, they practice, but then it's almost like another mini Instant Challenge. They don't know what they're going to present until they get on the stage. Leite, what's your question?
Sorry.
Ellie, I just was a little fast. In the Team Challenge, we're gonna need to write and verbalize. And what about the Instant Challenge? It's only verbal. They don't need to write.
Instant Challenge, the piece where they reflect on the creative process, that's something that happens after the Instant Challenge finishes, and it's usually just with the team. It's a way that they recognize how they're going through the creative process in the Instant Challenge. So you spend time talking about, they do an Instant Challenge, and then you have a series of breakdown questions that you're going to cover with them afterwards so that they realize what they did, what they would change so that they can learn to grow from that experience. We'll talk more about that when we do the instant challenge portion. And then the team challenge, they do the creative process, but they're doing it over a long period of time, because the team challenge, they start doing it now. They're going to go all the way through until the tournament, working on this team challenge, making it better, improving it, always practicing, trying to always go a little bit farther, but they still need to reflect on it in the same way. And they actually have to write their reflection. And there's a series of questions at the end of the challenge. I'll talk about all of this next weekend. Felipe.
Sorry again. I'm talking too much. I know. I'm sorry, Ali. I have a question. I saw that you have the service. How do you call it? It's the
service learning.
Service learning. How does that work? Because I always had this doubt. Because when you do service learning, normally you go somewhere, you have a specific project, you go with the kids. Some schools do it. I think it's awesome. How does it work at DI? I'm curious. I saw that. I don't remember if we had the same in our competition, probably, but that always makes me curious about it. How does that work? They have to do something inside the competition itself, the day of the competition, or it's something wider that they can bring from other places, like something real that they've done before or they've done outside the school?
It's designed to bring a space where they take a service learning project that they might already be working on or that they would like to work on. And they run this project, and then the way they present about it is what comes from the DI structure. So last year, these are the ones from last year because I didn't update this slide. Last year, they had to make a podcast because it was online. So they had to make a podcast. And when you watch some of these presentations, the podcast is just people talking. It's just a black screen. It was really interesting to have that experience. So they had to make a podcast. So they would learn a new skill. They had to research about podcasts. They had to do a number of other things. So the structure of whatever the project is up to the kids. The kids decide what the project is. The intention is that they're going to identify a real need that they can fulfill, something they can change in their community. That's what the structure is. We want them to do something that's real. We don't want them to just invent something and do like a one-time event. Okay, we did it. That's not really service learning. Service learning is about long-term change. It's about having that interaction. It's about really trying to make a difference in your community. This is something that from year to year, service learning teams that do this well, they have a project that they're running. They take that project and they present about the structure of that project and what they're doing with that project within the framework that's given in the service learning challenge.
So it can be real. It can be a real project that they're doing outside DI, and then they present on the day of the competition.
They present it within the structure of what's required.
Yeah,
so they may need to do some specific things in the project to fulfill the requirements of the challenge. So they may have to. We had a team one year that they had to make a piece of music.
Yeah. I saw it.
About the project that they were doing. So they did that. And then they took it one step further. They made the music, they made an MP3, they set up a website, and you could purchase the MP3 to raise money for this orphanage that they visited. And then they did their project, they did their presentation about this orphanage, about the idea that they had of how to get money to help this orphanage. And they had to make a piece of music. They made the music. And then they did this other thing that connected the two. And that's the intention of the service learning.
Okay. So.
And it really is about like project management. Like it really goes to the core of project management, because sometimes there's a team that they have a project, and every year in service learning, they do service learning. They're still presenting about the same project because they're still running it, the same project from year to year, but they're presenting, okay, now we did this additional thing to make the project better, to inform more people about it, to look at it in a different perspective. That's the intention of the service learning. But it really is, it's a challenging thing to get the kids' heads around if they haven't done it before.
So if it stays inside the framework of the challenge for the competition this year, it can be something real that they're doing, and then in the day of the competition itself, and the day of the eye, they just present what they've done. inside that framework.
Within that framework, yeah, doing the things within that framework. What happens a lot of the time is that our teams don't understand that, and they think they have to create a new project, run it, do a couple of events, and then present about it. But the intention for service learning is that we want this to become something that becomes part of the kids. So, and it's supposed to be about looking at long-term solutions. So they can even take like a project that's being run by someone else, and they can take that and say, we're going to work with this project within this framework and present about this project as we're going to help, and hopefully that inspires them to make changes to make the world better. Hopefully that inspires the people that were already running the project about different ways they could make the world better. I mean, it's a whole different animal. It really takes it that next step into the real world, into where we have like the girl that saw homeless people that are cold and then, made a coat that's a sleeping bag and then gave these things away. I mean, it's like that. That's the level that we're looking for, like really taking it to the next level. So it's kind of a bridge.
Great. I just wanted to know that because I was worried that it had to be something specific just for the competition, because for me, it would lose like the thing of service learning, like something to help others long term, right? It's a project that is its intention is to change something, to help others and to make a difference in the world. So I was worried that was something just for the competition, but if it's something that can be happening outside and then presented on the day of the competition, for me that's great. That's wonderful.
Yeah, the intention is to create this, real long-term dedication. Any other questions about the challenges? We're going to talk a lot about the structure and everything next weekend when we do the Teen Challenges Challenge. So the program, I will offer you this series of materials that you will get once you purchase the team member for your team. You'll choose your team challenge, one of those 6. And in the team challenge, they're going to learn about goal setting and recognizing what their success criteria is. So like we have to obtain these objectives in order to get a good score. How far they take it and if they do all those things is up to the team. But they need to know and understand what's in there. They're going to work with research skills when they work the team challenge, because they almost always have to research a couple of different things to make decisions, to move on and apply the information that they need to do in the challenge. And we always want them to be thinking outside of the box, to be trying to think in a different way, to be trying to dedicate themselves to innovation and something new. The roadmap is this amazing resource that has all of your lesson plans. It has all the things that you need to document their learning process, to help them recognize what stage of the creative process they're in. It teaches you and them about project management. It gives you the tools that you can use. It shows you the timeline that you can follow. It will give them different tools for thinking under pressure. It gives you lessons about team roles. It takes all the work and all the guesswork out of it. If you're new to the program, you can just take the roadmap and say, oh my gosh, this is, use that. And you can use that in your classroom. There's so much useful information in there. It gives you the whole space of how you can direct your team. There's the rules. It gives you the procedures. It gives you the materials that you're going to need, talks about safety. And it specifically talks about this piece of no interference, because one of our fundamental things is that we don't want to have any interference, any ideas, any work, any direction from anything, anybody, any person, parent, sister, team manager, passerby in the street. We don't want any information coming from anybody other than those 2 to 7 members of the team. Because when that happens, one, we're not getting the perspective of the kids anymore. They're going to end up disengaging because they're doing something that is not their directive. But it also is because that ends up disvaluing the abilities that they have, because they're working towards a value that was given to them instead of the value that they have for themselves, because they are the future. We want them to realize that they have way more potential than they realize. they get very dependent on an adult setting. Okay, here's what you have to attain. This is where you need to reach. And they got there and then they're successful. That's not about their perspective. That's about our perspective. We want them to see what is their perspective. Where is my point? Where am I going? And am I going to attain it? And if I didn't attain it, how can I attain it? What can I change about myself? What can I change about my process to get myself there? Because that's where we have real value. That's where we have real learning. The kids are only going to do this and attain this if they are the only ones contributing the ideas and the destination that they're trying to get through, because that's where they're going to see their process. And that's our job, to get them to see where they are in the process and how much they have grown. There's also training sessions. We have our lovely online training that we're doing now. There's also the Adobe Learning Program. There is the resource area. There's this huge community of people that want to help you. You can get online and ask questions. There's lots of information out there. Please don't try to operate in a vacuum. You are not alone in this. It is not easy. You should look for help if you need it. And I think, all right. So as a team manager, this is what you are going to be working towards. All right. If you are a team manager, you are looking to be a creativity stimulator. What is that? A creativity stimulator. Nobody knows.
I think maybe we need to, I don't know, give structure for them to start thinking in a creative way. Like to help them to think in a different way, but then needs to do it. We just need to give the structure for them to do it, because I think structure is a key word in the DI, structure and creative. I don't know.
You need to be an interference deflector. Interference is a little harder to understand. You're an educator. You're a child safety officer. You're a challenge expert. And you're a facilitator. What I would usually do, but I think I'm not going to do in the interest of us not going until, a full 11 o'clock point, is we would go to breakout rooms and talk about what these things mean. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of give you some ideas, and then feel free to screenshot this so you can think about it. But all of this information is in the rules or in the roadmap. I'm not sure which one. But our creativity stimulator, thinking about how to have the team members develop and express their individual and group creativity. So providing our structure. Educator, guiding them as they develop, not necessarily teaching them, but you're giving them tools for construction, for instant challenge, for project management. Challenge expert, you need to serve as the expert for the challenge and the rules, because I can guarantee you there will be misinterpretation with the challenge, there will be misinterpretation with the rules, or they just won't read it. Most of them, in our perspective, in our context, are going to be second language learners. So it's important to take time to chew on the language. What's written there? What does that mean? Let's talk about it. What does that word mean? I mean, it's a vocabulary teaching lesson. What does this word mean? Let's talk about what this word means. Let's talk about what this could entail. But you should read and try to understand what that challenge is asking. And if you're not sure, please ask. It's important that you understand so you can make sure that you don't have a team like I had a number of years ago, where the team saw a challenge that was called The Tension Builds. And they were really excited about this challenge because the title said The Tension Builds. And they understood that they needed to make a play about going camping because they saw the word tent and the word tension. But actually, when they read the challenge, then they saw they had to make a structure that would support weight using fishing line that would help tension keep the structure from breaking. So there was a misinterpretation on what that challenge said. So when I read the challenge, I said, oh, look, guys, the challenge says you have to do this. Is this something you're interested in? No, we don't want to build a structure. That's too hard. Okay. So maybe let's look at another challenge. So it's important that you are the challenge expert. So if you see them doing something that is a complete like misunderstanding about what that challenge is asking them to do, you should tell them, like, the challenge is asking you to do this, guys. Okay, it's important. Interference deflector. You need to make sure that the challenge is team directed and team developed. And this is something that is very hard as a teacher to see your kids failing and not tell them how to solve a problem. It's very hard as a parent. As a parent, sometimes the best thing to do is to like not even look at what's happening. Just, you know, try to help them be like responsible, or like, are you guys on track? Or is there anything you need for your DI meeting? But it's really hard when you see them working on something to not give them like a solution. But we have to put the kids on guard. That's your job as a team manager. Put the kids on guard for this, because you want the kids not to, I mean, we want them to win. We want them to do the best and to win. We do. But the most important thing is that they are in their process and that they are not having their perspective and their goal and the value about what they can do for themselves and what they're able to do disvalued or discolored by the contribution of ideas or perspectives of other people who need to be in this learning process. It's the kids. So you want them to be on guard so that if somebody comes and says, hey, you should, the kid can say, stop, don't say it. Because if the parent says, you should paint it this way, now the kid can't ever use that because a parent said it. Even if they thought of it on their own eventually, we've already disrespected and disvalued their process. Now they won't be able to use that. It's really, really hard for parents to resist, and you won't be able to educate the whole world. I mean, as much as we want to say, you know, we can have parent meetings, we can explain, communicating with the parents on your team is super key. I really encourage you for clarity, for being able to make sure that things are flowing well and that you don't have interference happen with your team, that you form a group with the parents, that you communicate with the parents of your team on a regular basis about expectations, about what was done at team meetings. So the parents are aware, but also so they know that they should not go in and interfere. You need to teach your kids how to say, no, I am not going to do that. Please don't tell me anything because I don't want to have my perspective discolored by what you expect of me and what you think is a good idea.
Is this something that happens a lot? Like parents interfering or other people interfering? Yes.
If the parents are not made aware of interference and how they need to not interfere, it does happen. And often when you get to a competition level, and this does still happen every year, and it's not the fault of the team managers or the coordinators of the school, but there are some parents that just have blinders on for like what this program entails. And so when their kid on their kid's team doesn't win, they go and complain about the other kids. Oh, the kids wouldn't have been able to do that. Oh, like they go because they don't have this perspective of valuing what the kids were able to do. All they have is the perspective of that this kid was better than my kid, and that's not fair. It happens a lot. And most of the time you can see that it happens because you see like work that was not done by kids. And the kids, like, they'll even be honest about like, oh yeah, my mom did that for me. Or, you know, like, oh, we did this together with my grandma. Like they know. That's why you want the kids to know, because we want the kids to be protectors of their value. We want the kids to be protectives of their perspective. So they can tell that parent, you know, don't do it. Don't tell me. Don't give me help. Don't help me because I need to learn. Because it's a competition. Yeah, we want them to win. It's a competition, but it's not, you know, that's not the end goal of what we want the kids to get from this process. Okay, you won. That's one moment. But what did you learn? How have you grown as a person? It's really important to spend time teaching them about interference. There's a whole bunch of different things in there. And I actually have like a little mini training about interference that I do in my presential training where we kind of quiz them. And I take the questions from there and I run like a parent meeting where we have the parents go through like a training about DI, and I give them these same questions because I want them to realize how they can provide structure without interfering as well. Because sometimes they really do have good intentions. I don't think any parents don't have good intentions when they want to see their kids succeed, but there's ways that they can provide structure without interfering. So it's important for them to understand what it is. Child safety officer, you need to make sure that they're being safe, if they're using tools, if they're constructing things or whatever they're doing. You need to make sure that they are being safe about it. It is not interference. If you see a kid picking up a saw and waving it around while they're working on their scenery, to go and say, hey, this is how you safely use a saw. Okay, first we brace here and we brace here. That is not interference, but don't do it on their scenery. You're doing the work on their scenery. Okay, show them how to safely use things. Supervise them. Dealing with conflict resolution is super important. You cannot work with a team that you have a kid who's completely out of sorts and is bringing the team down. That is your job, to give them conflict resolution techniques, to work with the abilities and inabilities of a team to deal with a problem. Their social emotional health will impede their creative process, and you do need to deal with those things. And you do need to create behavior guidelines because it's fun, it's exciting, you're going to throw yourself in there, okay? But it doesn't mean that we're going to be in there, you know, without some guidelines and expectations. And these should be established by the team, like our essential agreements. But, you know, like, okay, we're not going to be on our cell phones during our meeting, or we're not going to eat during our meeting so we can make sure that we're productive in our discussion. Or when we're having a conflict, we're going to stop and we're going to deal with it. You need to give them some ideas and let them establish what their behavior guidelines, because it's not your job to deal with inappropriate behavior. Okay, it's fun. We want them to think freely, but that does not mean that you have to have rude kids being rude to each other. Philippe, you want to add something? I know you're dying.
Actually, I'm really sorry, Ali. I'll have to leave a little bit early, okay? But
that's fine.
I think that we've seen some of this before, right? In our in another year, because I have a student waiting for me at my door. I'm really sorry. I didn't know it would take
it's
long.
okay.
Guys, I'm sorry. Ali, great to see you again. Let's see each other again in the competition, we hope, right? So
yes.
Sorry guys. Bye. Have a nice day. Have a nice training session as well. Okay. Bye. Give a kiss to that little girl that is around you, all grown up. Okay. Bye guys.
Okay.
See you.
The final one is the facilitator. Okay, you're not the director of the meeting, you are the facilitator of the meeting. You will need to manage finding a meeting space for your team that is allowed within COVID restrictions. Okay, you'll need to create that team calendar to know we're going to meet every Tuesday for an hour, every Thursday for an hour. We're going to meet so many Saturdays a month at somebody's house. Talk about the meeting agenda, things that you're going to cover. And again, you don't have to think of all these things because all of this stuff is there in the roadmap already ready for you. You just decide which of those things you're going to do, but you don't have to use that resource. You're going to make sure that they get to the presentation, that they're going to get to the tournament. In my school, I leave a lot of the stuff up to the parents. The parents need to purchase the flight. The parents need to find the hotel. In your school, you can decide what's going to work for your school. Maybe your school has specific things that you have to do. But the last several years, I handed that over to the parents. I took out the financial median of the school, and it really helped a lot to just make things happen without having parents complaining about this hotel or that flight time or whatever. So I have done both models. If you want advice on how to do those models, please let me know. I'm happy to share my experience and the structure that I provided. But you're a facilitator, but you're not a leader in this. You're just the facilitator for this space. And you should involve the kids in this idea of figuring out what is on the meeting agenda. You know, what is it that we want to be able to do when we go to our competition? What's our priority? in terms of if there's workshops offered, making those decisions as a team. You're there to facilitate that decision-making process, but you don't make those decisions, the team does. Finally, one of the most important things is that you need to have fun. The kids need to have fun. I mean, the whole point of this is to be doing real learning, but in a fun way. So it's important to not lose that element of fun. A lot of the time when you start out with this, the kids are like super excited. And once they get into the creative process and they see how hard it is, they want to give up because they don't want to have to fight through the conflict. They don't want to have to fight through trying to create the team. It's important to always keep it light and fun and positive. We never want to focus on what the team isn't doing. We always want to focus on what they're able to do. We need to provide a structure where we can show them what they're able to do and how they can do those pieces, how they can do these steps. Okay, now there's people coming in to look at stuff in my house. Sorry if there's any noise coming through. All right, we're going to do a very fast rundown of the DI season, and then we're going to break for about 15 minutes, and then we'll come back and do our second session with the skills building. So with our DI season, this is more or less what you want to look at. You want to make sure you take the time when you get your team number to download these documents and ensure that you understand what they are. Your key pieces that you need to work with is the team challenge, which is they're going to have to decide what that is based on what is offered for the year. So there's on the DI website, there is the challenge previews, and you can go through those challenge previews and see which one looks interesting. I think when you log in, you have to decide which of those challenges that your team is going to do. And then you only have access to that one challenge. And I believe if in the end they read it and they really don't want to do that challenge, I think you can have a backup. But I'm not sure about this. I'm still waiting to see what the actual definition of that is. You receive the roadmap that has your pieces. Team challenge. Oh, very important. Team challenge. You should have your copy. Every team member should have their own copy, but you should have at least one team copy where they're going to take notes. Take time to read and discuss what's in the team challenge. Take time not to just like read the team challenge. Okay, we're going to start working. Take time to look at each element. You know, it's going to ask them to make or do like 4 different things. Take the time to read that. What does this mean? What does this language mean? Try to have them restate it in their own way. Try to have them rewrite what they understand. So you can make sure they understand what they really need to have to do. The roadmap, you get a copy of that. You don't need to give that to your kids. That's your planning document. You can read through that. You can plan how you want to use it. You can decide what your trajectory is going to be. We have the rules. You should have a copy for yourself. You should read it because your kids probably won't. You should have a team copy. You can designate somebody as, okay, you're going to be the one in charge of the rules. So maybe they can check stuff, but they probably won't. Okay. Skim through it with them. Try to point out, important things like, no party poppers and no live animals and things like this, because you need to know what those rules say. So when they're like, oh, I have this really great idea, like, guys, let's remember what the rules say. So we make sure that we don't get stuck and excited about an idea that in the end we can't use. Read through, highlight things, always refer back to it as you're moving through this process. And then the last piece that you need to look at for understanding is the clarifications. Clarifications happen when we have a challenge that was written. They're very specific with language in DI. It goes through a very long editing process. Each of the challenges that come out, there's a team of 6 people that write it. There's a team of like 10 people that edit and give feedback anonymously. Then there's the team of DI experts that go through and make sure that the language is all going to be at a 3rd grade reading level so that we can make sure that the kids are able to understand what they get. But still, even with all of this, sometimes the way something is phrased causes a lot of misunderstanding, and teams can write and ask a question to DI about what does this really mean? If it's an individual clarification, they will receive their own return from DI that doesn't give them any new secret information. It just uses what's stated in the challenge and refers back to what's stated there. As you can see, it's stated here. Therefore, you can infer this, but we're going to tell you because of what's stated here, you can infer that this says this. So they can get this as an individual, but sometimes there's so many teams that write with the same question that DI will actually publish a clarification and say, look, this says this, it should say this, and this is what that means. There's a clarification cat that comes up on the DI Instagram. So if you follow the DI Instagram, you'll see a clarification has been published for blah, blah, blah challenge. Please check the resource area. You log in with your team number in the resource area and there will be a clarification there. It's important to always check for clarifications that have been published and use that resource. If the team is not sure about something, put them in charge of doing this thing about doing the clarification process where they ask the DI experts that run the challenge what that really means, because it's important for them to know that they can seek out this information if they need it. But again, they don't get any new information from these people. They just refer back to what's written in the challenge. Add 1 year to all of these years, okay? Because I didn't have a chance to screenshot because the documents just came out on Wednesday. So I have not updated the but this is the year. So like if they were born in this year in any of these months, they're going to be elementary level, but add 1 year to this because this is last year's screenshot, but just to give you a perspective. And the way that we run the competition levels is that if you have a team of 6 kids that are all born in 2016 or before, but then we have one that was born in 2009, then they're going to, or sorry, 2008, then they're going to compete at a middle school level because they have one member who is a middle school level. It goes by the oldest member of the team. So it's important. There's nothing wrong with having mixed level groups, but they need to be aware that they're going to compete at the highest level group. Hi. Okay, can you wait a second or you can ask Popeye. Again, here's our 3 pieces that we work with. The team challenge is not there because I don't know why, but the slide did not update. But we work with our skills building, the instant challenge, the team challenge. You're working with all of these things through the season as you go and always putting them in the perspective of the creative process. So when you're working through this, you're looking at how they're recognizing in the instant challenge. You're looking at how they're imagining when they're doing skills building. You're looking at how they can initiate and collaborate when they're doing the team challenge. So you're still working with this creative process within these 3 pieces. It's really important as the team manager that you are making them aware where they are in the creative process to make sure that they're aware they don't get stuck in imagine or they don't get stuck in initiate and collaborate and they don't take time to assess and see where they can be better. Or they don't take time to assess and realize that they didn't understand the challenge and go back and recognize again. You have to make sure they don't get stuck in any one stage of the process for too long. When you're thinking about your sessions, what stage are you in? If you're in stage 1, you're just beginning. Maybe you guys haven't selected the challenge yet. You're going to work primarily with skills building and instant challenge in equal parts when you meet. Just because they haven't selected a challenge doesn't mean that the team shouldn't be meeting. Most teams would start meeting by now, even if they haven't selected a challenge, because they're already working on skills building. They're already working on doing instant challenges. When you're in the second stage, they've chosen that team challenge. They're starting to work on that team challenge. They start to get focused on it, but don't let them forget instant challenge. Instant challenge should be done at every single team meeting, no matter what. Do an instant challenge, break it down, talk about how you could improve. They should still be working towards making new improvements in skills. So you're still working on conflict resolution. You're still working on learning how to use tools effectively, whatever it is. When we start to get into stage 3, they're working out their skills. They're doing a little less instant challenge. They're really focused on their team challenge because that's a big part. It's like 75% of their points or 60% of their points, I think, that they do at the competition. But don't forget about instant challenge. When you get to the end, we have done all our skills building. We are functioning as a team. We're still working on our team challenge. It's still our main priority, but don't forget about instant challenge. Instant challenge needs to be practiced consistently. When you don't practice instant challenge with your teams, they end up not being able to compete doing an instant challenge because they've forgotten how to think fast. They've forgotten that skill level. It's important to practice those things all the time. Make sure you keep that process moving. So if you're starting out, Find a virtual place or an in-person place if you're allowed to have people in person together. Okay. Get that team number purchased. You can do that either through your school and charge the students a fee, or you can also just say, hey, parents of the team, we need to purchase this team number. This is where you do it. Work with them to purchase the number on the website. Then you have the team number, you log in and you start working, and the parents figure out how to spread out that cost and pay each other back. As you're working with the team, take notes, take pictures while the team is planning, while they're building, so they can look back at where they came from, so they can see how far they've gone. Set the meeting agendas, but always working with the team members about what it is that they feel they need to accomplish. Okay. You know what the project management process is. Teach them about that project management process. Give them those pieces so that they're able to apply it and create the project management path that they want to follow. Always, always, always communicate with parents. If you're not comfortable with communicating with them by WhatsApp, which is easier, do communicate with them by email. Make sure after each team meeting that you send them an email with a rundown of what was covered, what the kids said their responsibilities are going to be, not because the parents need to tell them, but just so the parents are aware. Parents that are not aware are more likely to interfere because they get worried about what's happening. So if you're communicating with the parents and they're aware of what it is that they need to do, they are less likely to interfere. This thing about the IC, this does not apply because our tournament's actually later. And this was for the online pieces. Again, another slide that didn't get updated, just got updated in Portuguese. So make sure you're aware of when we are working towards the tournament. There will be times that you will need to upload things in the resource area before the tournament because everything has to be uploaded prior. And that is just defined in the rules of the road. And then work with registering the team for the tournament event that you will need to do. At the tournament, they will participate in an instant challenge. Instant challenge, when you're doing your team meeting, is working towards their skills building with instant challenge. At the tournament, they will do an instant challenge completely separate and secret. It is so separate and secret that I, as the affiliate training director, know nothing about instant challenge. I don't know what instant challenge they do. I don't know what they do to prepare. I'm not allowed to see it. They actually have it password protected and encrypted. It is a super secret scroll process, the instant challenge, but all teams will have to do an instant challenge at the tournament. It is a big part of their points that they earn. So it's important that they're always practicing instant challenge when they are working in their team solutions. They will present whatever solution they chose, whatever challenge they chose to participate in. So there is these 6 challenges. These are the ones actually from this year: Daring Escape, For the Future, Tricky Tales, Roll With It, Up Close, Festival Frenzy. If they choose as a team to not compete in a presential tournament, there's also the Digital Open Challenge, which is a different challenge that is made entirely to be a digital challenge. I'm not clear on if you have to purchase numbers separately to do both of these things for whatever reason, but I hope that we will know that soon. But we are aiming for Brazil. We are aiming for a presential tournament, and that's what we're planning for. And so they can choose a challenge and go and compete, we assume, in Sao Paulo. Things they will need to submit online prior to the tournament. This is just for your information. This is there in the roadmap. This is there written in the rules of the road, all of these things. They will need to do their tournament data forms, the expense report, the Declaration of Independence. All these things will need to be submitted online in the resource area prior to the tournament. And I hope that because of that, that will help us to work with the prep area appraiser and identify any problems or rules that they're not following, so that they'll have time to bring things into compliance before the tournament rather than at the tournament, which can happen. It's important to always be checking for the clarifications. So when you go to the tournament, you should print the team clarifications, and you can also be aware of the published clarifications. If they do a team clarification, they do need to bring that to the tournament. At the tournament, we have these people called appraisers. The appraisers are adults who know about DI, who've gone through special training, about how to be an appraiser and how to appraise that challenge. They are challenge experts. They are DI aware. And the design of DI is to not have one person appraising and putting the value of these kids. You always have several people within their own parameters, their own rubric in their head, giving the points and judging this from their own perspective. And this is how we keep it to be a level playing field. The video submission, this would not be done online this year, we're in presential, but these appraisers will be there. They will judge. And then afterward, they ask the kids about what they did. They will ask them about this process. It's really important that they understand the process of DI and they go through the training. So if you end up this year going through and not having a team, but you're interested in still volunteering for DI, you could volunteer to be an appraiser. Having gone through experience with DI and having the experience of working within the program, but without having a team, you can be an appraiser because you have a good perspective of what the program entails. At the end, you want to think about evaluating and celebrating what they did. We never want to look at what they didn't do. Okay. The teams go to the competition, they present, they show their solution, they're excited. They know what wasn't done based on the points that they earn or don't earn, but they don't receive anybody saying, hey, why didn't you do this? Oh, you didn't do this. Oh, this was crap. Okay. Nobody does that in DI. They receive positive feedback. We focus on the positive. And we get them to realize of their own accord based on the points that they earn where they can improve. So after the tournament, you want to take time to celebrate, be excited, look at this huge process you went through. You're awesome. Session 2, you want to think about what did they do well? Let's look at our points. Let's think about what it is that we need to improve based on these points. What could we do if we're going to move on to another competition, further up, global finals? What would we do to improve? You also want to take time to thank the people that helped you, thank the team manager who's accompanying you, thank the parents who supported you, thank the community project managers that worked with you in your service learning, thank the teachers that taught you how to sew, whatever. And also take time to put things on social media. DI really pushes this. We want the world to be aware of the possibilities and the amazing things. And I know it's a little bit hard because we have a lot of laws in Brazil about social media exposure of minors. So the best way to have that happen is to not have it something that you are doing as a team manager. You have a parent who's in charge of the social media account of your team, or the kids themselves are running it and the parents are aware, and they talk about what they did and show the amazing things that they've accomplished. Finally, if you want to make sure that you are following things and know what's going on, make sure that you connect on social media with DI. You can check the DI Brazil website, follow them on Twitter. I don't really know how to use it, but they do post things. Sometimes they'll post instant challenges, things that can be done. We have the DI Brazil Facebook page as well. There's a lot of resources out there in the digital world. So now this is the end of our introduction training session. We are exactly 2 hours, which is what I expected. Let's stop our recording here, Marina, and we can come back in, I don't know, what do we